to this earth, generations one by one, ash to ash and dust to dust. There is nothing left undone.
My name is Mary Ellen Franklin. I live in Guilford, Vermont, on a working organic dairy farm, diversified farm with my husband David and one of my sons John. I've lived here since 1988, and I got involved in a green burial because a good friend, mentor, and neighbor of ours up the road wanted to be buried without a vault. And that was very important to her. She died in January of 2016, and she would have been 100 years old on, I think it was May 11th. I probably have it wrong, Eleanor. So she was 99 and a half when she passed away. As a neighborhood and a group of friends, extended neighborhood here in Guilford and also in Brattleboro and surrounding area, we were able to help her stay in her home until the morning that she passed away, and then we buried her here on our farm. Even in the months before that, she didn't know exactly where she was going to be buried. The land that she owned up on Packers Corners Road, and she owned a substantial amount of acreage, was very wet, and she was concerned that it was getting into the winter and there was not going to be any dry ground to be found to put her in. And she did buy a plot up at the Baker Cemetery, thinking that that would be an alternative to being buried on her place, and it's right up the road from here. And she then found out that even the Baker Cemetery, even though they hand dig the graves at the Baker Cemetery still, they require a vault, and she was opposed to a vault. So I mentioned that I was going to be buried here on the farm, that I guess quirky me does not want to be buried with a whole bunch of people I don't know in a cemetery, and really like the idea of being here on our land someday. And she was very interested in that, so she and her son and I and my husband David, we all drove up the hill and checked out the spot that I had in mind. She couldn't see anymore at that time, but she sat there quietly and listened, and her son and I told her what was around and what we were looking at, and she determined the site was a good one to be put in the ground. I remember the process at Town Hall being very easy and inexpensive. Called the town clerk. She said there was a form that needed to be filled out, and I don't remember if it was $5 or $10. And we also had our a friend and a forester who has a GPS, probably a program on his smartphone. He did the coordinates of the burial ground up there on top of the hill. So they are also like in place at the town office. That's about all it took. It had to be, I did read up about it on the computer, it had to be 50 feet from a neighbor's property line. You have to be so far away from a waterway. But again, it was very easy. There's a neighbor and a good friend of Eleanor's who has said that he will survey it officially one of these days, so have to remind him. But we have the coordinates, and that seems to be enough for the town in the state of Vermont. So beforehand, I guess a few years before, she had a coffin made by a good friend of hers who is a a woodworker, very skilled woodworker, took boards that her son had sawed from a tree that fell down on their land, cherry boards, and bartered for a beautiful cherry casket that she kept in her dining room and used as a desk and a table for years before she passed away. But she was all ready. It was measured for her. She wasn't a very big person. She was a little person, and it was to her length. She died again the end of January, and as luck have it, it really hadn't gotten cold enough to freeze the ground, but we knew that she was getting towards the end. So weeks before, my husband David took bales of hay and put them up there on the site to keep the frost out of the ground where we had intended to dig. And she passed away. We called a local fella here in town who was just terrific, and he came immediately with a backhoe. Couldn't dig where we wanted to dig because there's so much ledge up in this area of the farm, but there wasn't much frost, and he was finally able to find a spot right in the same vicinity that he could dig a good hole. I mean, she died very peacefully, and then she had, for years on the back of her couch, she had a fleece laid out over her couch, and until then I guess I just had never asked her what that was for. That was to go into the bottom of her casket, but she had told us all that she had a bag with the clothes that she wanted to be dressed in, and so we did the cleaning, the washing of the body. We actually had done that just before she passed away that morning, but then we were able to get her dressed, and she laid in state in her living room. Her son closed off the living room, closed off the doors away from any heat source. It was very easy because it was the end of January to chill the room, and she was there for, I believe, 3 days, and then on Sunday, we had a memorial service with her right there in her living room. All the people that we could fit in her house came, and she had already picked out readings. Other people had written things, and it went like clockwork. It was very beautiful. It was just like her, and just like she wanted. She had picked out things that went in the casket with her, the coffin, and she had picked out her pallbearers, and her pallbearers were all there. My 3 sons were 3 of the pallbearers, and they loaded her in her son's pickup truck in the back, and we all slowly proceeded to the burial site, and we covered her by hand with shovels, the whole group of us. Spoke some more, another poem by people that were there, and just a few more words, and we did the work of covering her up, and she will forever be there. Yes, my husband knows that I want to be buried up there as well, and for the longest time I couldn't get an answer out of him where he wanted to be buried, and then finally he said, well, if I go first, just put me wherever you're going to be. So so we'll both be there. Not too bad a place. I don't think. I'm able to find it still because the grass hasn't come in as thickly as it is other places. I meant to bring some stakes with me today because people have been asking where she rests. I will come back and mark it, and at some time it's the neighborhood's hope that we will get actually a footstone that lays at ground level, so with just her date what we would like to have put on it. Yep, 99 and a half years of life, and then resting here. Her remains anyway. Her spirit, that's on the wind.